So that would seem to suggest that they would be anxious to terminate that particular contract
I think
rather than keep it.
my read of it, of the circumstances, is that basically DTE is trying to force the best terms for itself in terms of ending the contract. So basically holding the city hostage and to try and get the best terms for the closure. The other part of it that it may be connected to it is that the city also has its own coal-fired electrical generating station for the public lighting department. I would assume that DTE Energy would like to see the city of Detroit privatize that and not operate that. It's an extremely dirty facility. It's really needs a lot of investment if it's going to be continue to operate. I mean, it's a coal-burning power plant in Southwest Detroit. So that could be part of the mix of the negotiation that could be going on there. And that's a much larger facility. It's about 170 megawatts, I think. But what's really needed for the city of Detroit in terms of energy is, and this is a benefit to the entire state of Michigan, and frankly the whole area, even larger than Michigan, is an investment in the energy infrastructure of the city of Detroit, because it's so grossly inefficient that if you fixed the infrastructure of the city of Detroit so that it was more efficient, it would basically wipe out the need for any building any new generating capacity just through conservation of energy. And that's the other point that I've been arguing, that this goes into some of the opportunities, is that if you invest in energy conservation, you get more bang for your buck. Energy conservation also generates jobs in terms of retrofits of buildings, installing all of the new higher efficiency equipment, and that's just the jobs from the energy part of it. But you'd generate even more jobs if you changed the way the city of Detroit handled its, and I prefer to call it solid material management, because I don't think it should be considered waste. It's too valuable to be considered waste. If they managed to recycle 50% of what is now waste, I've calculated that the city of Detroit could generate somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 new jobs in the city of Detroit, in the city, if they made a targeted investment. And the way you'd end up generating those jobs is first and foremost through the whole recycling process. Operating an incinerator or landfill, compared to recycling generates 10 times, just in terms of the collection and processing of the recyclables, generates 10 times as many jobs as operating an incinerator or a landfill. It's cleaner. It's means that you are doing energy conservation instead of burning this material. So, for example, in the case of an aluminum can, it takes only 5% of the amount of energy to create a new aluminum can from another aluminum can, as opposed to going through the whole process of mining the bauxite ore, processing it and smelting it and everything. So the energy efficiency gain, the energy conservation gained through the recycling is tremendous. In the case of paper, I think it's about, it only takes about 60% of the energy to generate paper from recycled content as opposed to from virgin forest. So paper is one of the things that they want to burn because it has a high BTU, or British Thermal Unit, content for generating heat at the facility. The two things that generate most of the heat for burning is paper and plastics, both of which can be recycled. And you'd save more energy through recycling than you can generate through burning. So, but through the conservation, then you also don't have the emissions that then compromise public health. So you benefit all around. That would probably generate in terms of, so for example, one option for the facility would be you close the facility down, you have this large facility that's been designed for handling solid material, not waste. You convert that to being what's called a materials recovery facility, a MRF. You bring all the material in and you sort it out into all the valuable materials. The paper, the plastics, all the different metals. You then set up an industrial park in the area that then uses all those materials as input to new manufacturing jobs. There's for example, in the city of New York, there's a paper mill that operates in the city of New York that is entirely operated off of 100% recycled content that comes from the city. So it's basically you circulate the wealth entirely within the city of Detroit based off of its own solid material. And you can do the same thing with the metals, with the plastics, everything. And now, well, I shouldn't say everything quite yet. I believe you can actually get to what's called zero waste. That the city of Detroit would never have to use a landfill or an incinerator or dispose of anything ever again. And this is actually being implemented in other countries and other cities. The state of California implemented a mandatory requirement that all of its major cities achieve a 50% recycling rate. And it happened. The city of Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States, has achieved a 50% recycling rate. The city of San Francisco is approaching a 70% recycling rate and has implemented a policy of zero waste. The city of Oakland has implemented a policy of zero waste. But it happened because it was led by a policy that came from the state that basically encouraged cities to do this. And when cities started seeing the benefit, they went even further. Because what happens is, and this is the case, say, for example, in the city of Ann Arbor, which has the best recycling program in the state of Michigan. In Ann Arbor, in our case here, our recycling rate is high enough. We're at about a little over a 50% recycling rate in the city of Ann Arbor, and that includes both composting of organic materials as well as recycling solid materials. What happens is once you get up to about a 50% overall recycling rate or 30% recycling of the solid material rate, you achieve an economy of scale. So that you get to the point, at that point, the cost of operating a recycling program is no less than disposing of the material in a landfill. And in the case of Ann Arbor, there are, depending upon the markets for the sale of the materials, the city of Ann Arbor has actually made money in some years off of its recycling program, depending upon market rates. And the plastics go to a company in Dundee, Michigan, where they're reprocessed into new raw material to be used by manufacturers for plastics. I'm not sure if this is still true, but the paper was going to a paper mill in Kalamazoo for a while. So it basically generates economic activity within the state of Michigan. So you keep the circulating in the state of Michigan instead of having to buy materials from outside of the state of Michigan, which means our money flows out of the state that comes from raw materials generated from someplace else. So this is a way of investing into the economy of both the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. And that's where the big benefit, the lost benefit, the opportunity lost is happening, is in terms of the economic jobs that could be created in the economic activity that could be created within the city of Detroit. The state has documented that Wayne County does not have sufficient capacity to process all the recyclables currently being collected within Wayne County. So what's happening is they're getting collected in communities in Wayne County, and then they get shipped off to a recycling facility in some other county, Oakland, Washtenaw, are the two primary places where it's going. So it's a lost economic opportunity in Wayne County right now, and the city of Detroit could basically take advantage of basically building a facility that's large enough to handle the current materials being collected for recycling in other communities in Wayne County, and be a hub for that economic activity by doing the investment for the city.
One question and all. What's the likelihood of that happening?